Mr. President.
Fellow Nigerians, I feel greatly disturbed at the tone we have come to regarding the political crisis in Rivers State. Like many of you, I have watched with concern the development with hope that the parties involved will allow good sense to prevail at the soonest. But all that hope borne out without any solution to the crisis. With the crisis persisting, there's no way democratic governance, which we all fought and worked for over the years, can thrive in a way that will redound to the benefit of the good people of the state. The state has been at a standstill since the crisis started, with the good people of the state not being able to have access to the dividend of democracy. Also, it is public knowledge that the governor of Rivers State, for unjustifiable reasons, demolished the House of Assembly of the state as far back as 13th December 2023, and as up till now, 14 months after, now rebuilt the same. I have made personal interventions between the contending parties for a peaceful resolution of this crisis, but my efforts have been largely ignored by the parties to the crisis. I'm also aware that many well-meaning Nigerians, leaders of thought, and patriotic groups have also intervened at various times with the best of intentions to resolve the matter. But all their efforts were also to no avail. Still, I thank them. On February 28, 2025, the Supreme Court, in a judgment in respect of all about 8 consolidated appeals concerning the political crisis in Rivers State, based on several grave unconstitutional acts and the disregard of the rule of law that has been committed by the governor of Rivers State, as shown by the evidence before it, pronounced in very clear terms. And I quote, "A government cannot be said to exist without one of the 3 arms that make up of the government of a state under the 1999 Constitution as amended. In this case, the head of the executive arm of the government has chosen to collapse the legislature to enable him to govern without the legislature as a despot. As it is, there is no government in Rivers State," and I quote. The above pronouncement came after a catalogue of judicial findings of constitutional breaches against Governor Siminalayi Fubara. Going forward in their judgment, and having found and held that 27 members of the House who had allegedly deflected, and I quote, are still valid members of Rivers State House of Assembly and cannot be prevented from participating in proceedings of that House by the 8th respondent, that is the governor, in cohort with 4 members, and unquote. The Supreme Court then made some orders to restore the state to immediate constitutional democracy. These orders include the immediate passing of an appropriation bill by the Rivers State House of Assembly, which up to now has not been facilitated. Some militants had threatened fire and brimstone against their perceived enemies of the governor, who has up to now not disowned them. Apart from that, both the House and the governor have not been able to work together. Both of them do not realize that they are in office to work together for the peace and good governance of the state. The latest security report made available to me show that between yesterday and today, there have been disturbing incidents of vandalization of pipelines by some militants without governor taking any action to curtail them. I have, of course, given stand order to the security agencies to ensure safety of lives of good people of Rivers State and the oil pipelines. With all this and many more, no good and responsible president will stand by and allow the grave situation to continue without taking remedial steps prescribed by the Constitution to address the situation in the state, which no doubt requires extraordinary measures to restore good governance, peace, order, and security. In these circumstances, having soberly reflected on and evaluated the political situation in Rivers State, and the governor and deputy governor of Rivers State having failed to make a request to me as president to issue this proclamation as required by Section 305, Paragraph 5 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, it has become inevitably compelling for me to invoke the provision of the Section 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, to declare a state of emergency in Rivers State with effect from today, 18th March, year 2025, and I so do. By this declaration, the governor of Rivers State, Mr. Similaye Fubara, his deputy, Mrs. Ngozi Oju, and all elected members of the House of Assembly State are hereby suspended for an initial period of 6 months. In the meantime, I hereby nominate Vice Admiral Eboket Ibas, retired, as administrator to take charge of the affairs of the state in the interests of the good people of Rivers State. For the avoidance of doubt, this declaration does not affect the judicial arm of Rivers State, which shall continue to function in accordance with their constitutional mandate. The administrator will not make any new laws. He will, however, be free to formulate regulations and may be found necessary to do his job, but such regulations will need to be considered and approved by the Federal Executive Council and promoted by the President for the state. This declaration has been published in the Federal Gazette, a copy of which has been forwarded to the National Assembly in accordance with the Constitution. It is my fervent hope that this inevitable intervention will help to restore peace and order in Rivers State by awakening all the contenders to the constitutional imperatives, binding on all political players in the Rivers State in particular and Nigeria as a whole. Long live a united, peaceful, secured, and democratic Rivers State in particular and the Federal Republic of Nigeria as a whole. God bless you all for listening. Thank you.
We have breaking news. President Bola Tinubu has just declared a state of emergency in Rivers State according to Section 305 of the Nigerian Constitution as amended in 1999. He is now declared Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ekwe Ibas as military administrator of the state. According to him, no new laws will be made in the next 6 months. It means, therefore, that Governor Fubara and his deputy are now to stand down. This is following developments in Rivers State. According to him, he's made several attempts to intervene and ensure that every stakeholder come to terms with developments in that part of the country. He did say that the rulings of the Supreme Court following a long display of fracas in that part of the country has not been fulfilled. We're following that development very closely. Joining me now is our State House correspondent Femi Akonde, who joins me live from Abuja. Femi, talk to us about what more is happening here. Big news, big story. We saw that Mr. President met with security chiefs earlier today. We weren't quite sure what happened during that meeting, but now we know that 2 pipelines have been disrupted in Rivers State. What more do you know about this?
Well, indeed, it was very difficult to know what was the reason for that meeting. We all thought that meetings of this nature was not unusual, you know. From time to time, the president meets with his security chiefs. But we became more curious when we saw the president of the Senate, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, alongside the leader of the Senate and the leader of the House of Representatives, that's the majority leader, you know, come in or arrive at the villa and went in to attend that meeting. That's when we started putting different pieces of the jigsaw together to see that, you know, before a state of emergency is declared, the president would need the approval of the National Assembly. According to Section 305 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, he would have to transmit or inform the Senate President and the Speaker, and they will have to give approval before a state of emergency is declared. That's when we started to suspect that it could be about the situation in Rivers State. I know the security chiefs coming to see the president or having that meeting is also understandable because of the volatile nature of that region. And we saw in the president's broadcast, you know, he said that just between last night and this morning, there have been reports of pipeline vandalism and, you know, also threats to the peace and safety of the people in Rivers State. And as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, he cannot fold his hands and watch all of that. He's expected to take action because the primary responsibility of government is the safety of lives and property. So, you know, all of this coming or culminating in this broadcast just shows that indeed that was what was discussed at that meeting. That was what was being deliberated upon. The Attorney General of the Federation was also in that meeting, the DGDSS, the DG of the Nigerian Intelligence Agency, the National Security Advisor, all service chiefs, including the Inspector General of Police, the Chief of Staff to President Bola Tinubu. They were all in that meeting. It was about a 4-hour-long meeting in the presidential villa. Nifemi.
Absolutely, Femi. I'm looking at the picture of the Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ekwe Abbas right now behind me. who is now the military administrator for Rivers State. Interesting development, Femi. The Vice Admiral is a retired Nigerian Navy Vice Admiral who was the 22nd Chief of the Naval Staff of the Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Navy between 2015 and 2021. And according to Mr. President, no new laws will be passed in Rivers State for the next 6 months. But what intel are you getting, Femi? Because we saw the service chiefs earlier today at the presidential villa. We're hearing that a second pipeline has exploded following the initial report of an explosion last night. What more do you know about this development?
Well, it's still not very clear. That news is still very sketchy. We have been able to confirm that happened in the morning. We are beginning to hear news reports about another pipeline explosion. We cannot, right now, I can't independently verify or confirm that, but we believe very soon all of that will begin to unfold and that information will become very clear. But President Bola Tinubu has also issued clear directives to security operatives, to security agencies to ensure that they step up to the plate, they stop all of these vandalisms from taking place. The Navy now will be saddled with the task of moving around the waters, the creeks of the Niger Delta. There's also the Tantita Security Agency and other private security contractors who are also contracted to secure Nigeria's pipeline and oil installations. They will have to work round the clock at this time to ensure that people who want to sabotage these oil installations for political reasons are stopped from doing so. With a state of emergency declared in that region, it's to some extent also means that security will be heightened. The threat level in Rivers State has been raised as we speak. So for the vandals and others who might attempt to sabotage, it's not going to be easy. We expect that the security agencies will resist them really strongly this time around, because they now have marching orders from the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Bola Tinubu, to ensure that these pipelines are secured, because this administration is also highly interested in ramping up crude oil production. You have seen the projections made in the 2025 budget, where they hope to get crude oil production is projected to be at around 2 million barrels per day. With this kind of vandalism and other threats to the oil installations, it's going to be very difficult for the government to meet this target. And President Bola Tinubu will do anything it takes to ensure that he meets this target, because it is with the crude oil production that Nigeria gets most of its revenue that is very important for development and also ensuring economic growth in all areas and ramifications. Nifemi.
State our correspondent Femi Akode, thank you so much for the update there following this breaking news.
Thanks, Stephen.
We're joined now by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Professor Roland Otaru. Professor Otaru, President Tinubu just declared a state of emergency in Rivers State, enacting the provision of Section 305 following what he calls imminent violence in that part of the country. What do you make of this development?
Thank you for having me this evening. Well, I listened with rapt attention the broadcast of Mr. President, and I discovered that having regard to the mandatory provisions of Section 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, the President has the power to declare a state of emergency by issuing a proclamation, which he has just done. And same has already been gazetted. All he needs to do now at this time is to forward same to the President of the National Assembly for the National Assembly to take a decision on it. I think he has that discretion. He has exercised his discretion having regard to what he considered as breakdown of law and order in Rivers State. And we are witnesses to the breakdown of law and order in Rivers State. And this morning, from what I also read in the news, I discovered that there have been explosions here and there. So I think in order to save the situation, in order to save lives and property of the people of River State, he has that power. And of course, I would say he has that jurisdiction to declare a state of emergency in River State.
According to him, the judiciary...
For the peace and order, yes.
Indeed, senior advocate, according to the president, the judiciary isn't affected by this arrangement, but we understand that the executive has been dissolved, with the vice admiral now taking the position of a military administrator. This is reminiscent of what has happened way before now. How do you see this impact on the democratic progress we have made in over 25 years?
Well, the issue of democracy cannot be sacrificed on the altar of insecurity of the state. Well, do you know that the judiciary occupies a pivotal position in the system? And so that is why the judiciary is not affected, because the judiciary, as the third arm of the government, is apolitical. And that is, I'm sure, that is why the president has to leave the judiciary. At any time when a state of emergency is declared, the judiciary is always left untouched. And you know that the executive, the legislature, these are political structures, and as a result, they have to be affected. I know because of the problem between the executive and the legislature in River State. That is why there have been insecurity in the state. But the judiciary is apolitical, is neutral in this scenario. So I think the president was right, an absolute right, I would say, to leave the judiciary at this time.
So the provision of law of the Constitution provides that this happens for the next 6 months. What happens thereafter?
Well, he has appointed an administrator to carry out the functions of, quote unquote, the functions of the governor of the state. And so there is no stalemate. There is an administrator, and that is in accordance too with the provisions of the Constitution. So he is right to do that, and they will see the state will continue to function. And it is to maintain law and order in the state. It is my take that having appointed an administrator for the state, there will be no stalemate in the state. The state will continue to function. The civil service is there. He has not suspended the civil service, so they continue to act and perform their respective functions in the state.
How does this impact on the Supreme Court judgment that withheld, the resources, the financial resources to the state in the aftermath of what we understood to be the challenges the former governor faced?
Sorry, come again?
I'm asking how this new development impacts on the Supreme Court judgment that seized financial resources to River State.
Well, I think the federal government will know what to do. But for instance, that they might... Sorry?
Please go ahead, senior advocate.
Very good, very good. I think, well, the government knows what, the federal government knows what to do. Although with the new situation now, I think the federal government knows what to do, either to go back, or the state rather, to go back to the Supreme Court so that they can, maybe what I would consider the slip route to release to the state from the federation account. Because if money is not released to the state from the federation account, then the new administrator will not have money to spend.
Indeed.
I think the parties, especially the federal government, will know how to go around it.
Thank you for your contribution, Professor Roland Otaru, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Glad to have you join us this hour.
Thank you so very much, and thank you for having me.
Now let's turn to Port Harcourt and River State, where senior correspondent Uche Okoro is standing by. Uche, how is Port Harcourt reacting to this breaking news? Uche, unmute your mic. How is Port Harcourt reacting to the latest development?
Okay, Nifemi, I must say that this is coming as a surprise. No one actually predicted this. So there is, right now, everyone is reacting with surprise right now in the city of Port Harcourt. At any moment from now, I'll hit the streets even more to feel the pulse of the people. But I must tell you that this is coming as a very big surprise to residents of the state. Because there hasn't really been any significant escalation of the violence, speaking in terms of violence. Even though we've experienced some dimensions of the crisis escalating, just by the politicians playing politics. But we haven't really seen a full outbreak or widespread violence as a result of what has been going on in River State, aside from the the burning of the House Assembly complex, a couple of years ago. So, what is surprising is that if there's any violence, the state would witness, a bit of more visibility policing, increase the deployment of security personnel, perhaps if necessary, the Nigerian armed forces and other security agencies. But this, this particular situation, this particular breaking news, state declaring a state of emergency in River State, as I must say, is coming as a surprise to residents of River State. If I mean.
Well, we understand that another pipeline explosion hit River State today following what happened last night, Uche. A manifold in Ogba Egbema, Ndoni local government area was rocked by a blast just hour after a similar explosion at the Trans-Niger border. What more do you know about this development?
Right now, we do not know much. We do not know much about I would say, in terms of those who those who would be responsible or are responsible for those explosions and those fire incidents we've had in those pipelines. The police have said they've arrested a number of persons. I believe that in the next few hours and perhaps in the next few days, if the suspicions are true, if there's any flesh to these suspicions, two things are likely to happen. Groups that are responsible are going to come out and claim responsibility, all right, if this has a political undertone. Secondly, we expect that if groups don't come out to claim responsibility for this, we expect the security agencies to come out and tell us more. Because at this time, it remains in the realm of speculation. I do not have any information as to if any, militant group or any arm-bearing agitators or agitation is responsible for what has happened. But if there is any flesh to the rumors that are linking what has happened to politics, we expect these groups to come out and claim responsibility, or for the security agencies to tell us more in the coming hours. Nifemi.
Uche, prior to this time, there were videos online of militants in River State threatening violence. I personally spoke with former Inspector General of Police, Michael Kiro, who also confirmed that he had intel that things could snowball very rapidly. And that's perhaps why Mr. President says he's taking this move. How soon do we begin to get reactions from major stakeholders in Port Harcourt, especially former Governor Siminalayi Fubara?
Any moment now, any moment now. In fact, I don't predict that I will be sleeping tonight, if I mean. It's a very serious matter. So how soon? I will tell you immediately. This is going to elicit a lot of reactions, because bear in mind that in the build-up to this crisis, specifically around the local government election last year, sometime within early October towards the end of October 2024, there were certain clamors in certain quarters that what is happening in the state may result in a state of emergency. People had said that as at that time, there was a lot of controversy, a lot of a lot of tension in the build-up to the local government election that would force many persons to raise alarm that if not brought under control, we would have a state of emergency. So in as much as the state somehow had it in their mind that this might happen. No one saw it coming now. Now that it has come as a surprise, you can expect that everyone is going to be talking about this any moment from now. Everyone is going to be talking about this from the next minute. I'm sure people are already talking about this, and any moment from now, we'll begin to hear from the stakeholders. I expect, of course, the governor to react to this. It is his state, so he would be one of the first persons. We're expecting to be one of the first persons to react to this, perhaps even tonight. So we'll be following up. Perhaps maybe even before the 10 p.m. news, we would have a very serious update coming from the Rivers State Government House. I definitely am going to be on top of this situation, following up to ensure that we give our viewers all the latest.
With the assumption of a sole administrator, Uche, Mr. President is saying this doesn't affect the judiciary arm of government, but it sounds like the executive and the legislature are going to take a backseat for the next 6 months. There are a lot of conversations around the chief judge. Prior to this new development, I'm sure you followed what the investigation enacted by the Martin Amaewhule-led House of Assembly. Who sits over the judiciary in Rivers, and what have they been saying in the wake of this crisis?
Right now, the Honorable Justice Simeon Amadi is still the #1 citizen of the Rivers State Judiciary. Prior to this time, we know that the executive and the legislature have been embroiled in this crisis. The judiciary has somehow remained in the middle, has somehow remained insulated, not until, I would say, the last couple of weeks. The politicians, in quotes, are allegedly now trying to drag the judiciary.
We'll get back to Uche Okoro, who's live for us in Port Harcourt on this matter. Developing story, everyone. President Bola Tinubu has now declared a state of emergency in Rivers State, thereby suspending Governor Siminalayi Fubara and his deputy for a period of 6 months. In their place, we understand now that Rivers State has a sole administrator and the former Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral Ikwe Ibas, who will sit over the affairs of the South state for the next 6 months. President Tinubu also said his decisions were a way to forestall further breakdown of law and order bedeviled by the political crisis we've covered in Rivers State for almost a year now. We're following that development very closely, and we'll be back right after this break with more for you. Don't go away.